Hello everyone, I'm Wendell Jones and welcome to this edition of the platform. On this program, we examine national issues. We see the weather in America from newscasts on various television stations. And we know it is pretty bad on the eastern seaboard of the United States, particularly in Atlanta, Georgia. Today on our program, we are going to discuss the weather, and we are going to discuss a new book called The Great Bahamas Hurricane of 1929 as well, the story of the greatest Bahamian hurricane of the 20th century. Wayne Neely is a meteorologist, and he has been on our program before, and he has produced a number of books, and it is our pleasure to have him here with us again. Mr. Neely, welcome to the program.
It's good to be back, Mr. Jones.
Nice to have you. Dr. Ines, you're a weatherman yourself, aren't you?
Well, I've been observing the weather in Atlanta. I tell you, it's terrible.
Have you ever seen it that bad?
In Atlanta, no. In that area of Georgia and Alabama, that's unusual. Would you say so, Mr. Neely?
Yeah, it's a bit unusual, yes.
Good. What is happening?
Well, there's this particularly strong cold front that passed, and the cold fronts, a lot of the cold fronts this year have been extremely cold. They've had a lot of polar air coming down from the Arctic, and it's basically infusing cold air into the United States as well, and even for us here too.
Why is it exceptionally cold?
It's unusually cold because the jet stream, which is actually centered in the center of the United States, it went down a little further, extremely south, near Atlanta and Washington, those states as well. So the jet stream is lying right over them, and that cold polar air that the jet stream brings down from Canada comes into the United States, and that's one of the reasons why we're having this. And if Bahamas, I don't know if Bahamas can remember, but the exact same thing happened on the 19th of July 1977, where we had snow in the Bahamas, the first report of snow. The same conditions happened, but the only problem was that it went further down, so we were able to experience it here in the Bahamas.
Mr. Neely, today someone told me that early this morning,
Yes.
they live on the eastern end of the island, and there was a different temperature. The temperature dropped considerably in a very short period of time, going from hot to cold.
Yes.
What is happening?
That was a layer of stable air, but we had fog this morning, so that's one of the reasons why. And in the area where the fog is, it's extremely the dew point and the air temperature is basically the same, and so you have warm, damp air, but probably in the west it might be a bit warmer.
Yes, in the west it was warmer than
Yes.
in the east
Yes.
of New Providence
Yes,
today.
from my experience this morning driving, and most of the fog was in the eastern part of New Providence, and the western part was pretty okay.
Yeah, but tell me, you're the meteorologist. What is happening
Well,
there?
right now we have a front that's coming out, so there's a warm air ahead of the front, and at the front, at the boundary of the front, you have basically you have cold air behind the front and at the boundary of the front. But this year has been unusually freaky weather, so to speak, for me as a meteorologist at the Department of Meteorology.
Mr. Neely, last night, during President Obama's State of the Union address, I explicitly remember him making the point that climate change was real. What does that mean?
Well, I think climate change is occurring, but I don't think, well, for me as a hurricane specialist, I don't think hurricanes, for example, the hurricanes, the climate change is not really making the hurricane stronger or more intense, like some people say, but there's some form of climate change taking place. I can't deny that.
But
the problem is that everything...
It had taken place to the point where you had this climatic variations taking place.
Well, that's climate on the whole, and if one who studies meteorology, you're gonna have extremes in with weather. You're gonna have some summer's gonna be very warm. Like last year, we had a very wet, rainy season, and in terms of hurricanes, we had basically minimal hurricanes, even though the conditions were ideal for hurricanes to occur. And some people are blaming that on global warming, but basically, in terms of weather, you have peaks. Sometimes you have extreme hot weather conditions. Sometimes you have extreme cold weather conditions. That's the nature of climate and weather.
So it's not influenced by gas emissions and.
Well, I think to some extent, yes, it is, but not what a lot of scientists make it out to be.
When you have a situation like you had in the United States where children were not able to go home from school,
Yes.
they had to stay in school.
Yes.
Some children slept in
In
school
school, yes.
buses.
Yeah.
Yes.
People slept in their cars on the street because they were not able to move.
Yes.
I've never seen or heard of this.
Well, I think that has to do with, I think you have to blame the meteorologists, because in most cases the meteorologists should be able to predict, especially when it comes to climate or blizzards in the United States or cold polar air. They can tell ahead of time. In fact, on my website I can tell you basically ahead, probably a week in advance, where you're going to have a strong cold front or where you're going to have a relatively weak one. So that lies on the meteorologists in Atlanta and those areas
But
for
also
not informing the public to be on the.
How are you able to do that? How
Well,
are you able
You can follow the cold air as it comes from down in Canada. You can follow the cold fronts. You can look at the temperatures behind the cold front, because if it's a strong cold front, the temperature behind the cold front is going to be extremely strong. You're going to also have the wind gradients, or the speed of the winds in the back of the cold front is going to be very strong as well. So there are other parameters that you look for in determine the strength of a cold front.
But Mr. Neely, in the case of what happened in Atlanta, it wasn't also climatic conditions, you know. It's what Jones talk about sometimes. The failure at the political level to
Yeah.
provide the equipment.
Yeah.
In many states,
Yeah.
even as far north as Washington, D.C., minute you have a sprinkle of snow, Washington closes down.
Yes.
Because traditionally, they don't have snow equipment.
Yeah.
Equipment to move the snow, equipment to move the ice.
Yeah. But I still blame the meteorologists, because there's no way children are supposed to be caught on the highway on a road in the midst of a storm. That lies on the meteorologist. He's supposed to inform. And first, like for example, last year when we had the flood in the east, they blamed the meteorologists, but even though the warnings were given, now the question is whether the warnings were given and whether they advised the mayor or the governor about the impending storm. So it still lies on the shoulder of the governor, the meteorologist, and the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know what also means what happened in Georgia? The price of peaches would be sky high.
No, don't say that.
Georgia's a peach state. A lot of fruit got
Yeah.
burnt, seriously damaged from frost.
Yeah.
They're probably wiped out.
Probably wiped out.
Yes.
Yeah. Mr. Neely, the great Bahamas hurricane of 1929. Thank you for sending this book to me.
Yes. And I brought you a hardback this time.
You bought me a hardback.
Yes.
You were very kind, and you intentionally did not send one for Godfrey. I don't blame you. I don't. He deserves the soft back for him.
Okay.
Soft back for him. Hard
Yeah,
back for
yes,
me.
okay.
When in my day at school, right?
Yes.
Talk about fire bun.
Yes.
That's
So
what
that's
you're
what
trying.
you do
Trying.
But I agree with you.
Yes, okay.
You should have the soft.
Soft one, yeah, the
Yeah,
soft one's
soft
right
one
there.
for him.
Yes.
This is your
Eighth book.
eighth book.
Yes, on hurricanes. And I did this one before in a small, about 54-page book, but this one is over 200, I think 220 pages or more.
And you have photographs.
Yes.
You have information here that you probably got from the archives. Eh?
Yes, I got some from the archives, and I got some from several private sources as well.
And you find that these books are picked up by the
Yes.
general public?
Yes, they are. That's why I keep writing them. As long as they keep.
So it's a good business for you?
It's a good business, yes.
Okay.
But I don't do it just for the business part of it. I do it for documenting of these storms, for the impact that these storms had on the society at the time. I think that regular history books fail to document that side of the impact. of
The
these storms.
commissioners in the Family Islands
Yes.
apparently did a very good job
Yeah, they did an
in
excellent job, yes.
detailing what took place.
Yes.
In providing the information of what took place during these
Yes.
major hurricanes. Eh?
Yes.
Speak to that.
Yes, because the commission, in fact, they're doing a better job now, back then than now, because if I go into a newspaper to read, but for these books, for the commissions back then, they went into great details, persons who died, the amount of houses destroyed. For example, in the this book, 456 houses were destroyed in Nassau, and I think 300 plus in Andros. I got those from Commissioner Elgin Fawcett. He was the commissioner of Andros at the time, and he wrote a detailed report on the storm, and they went to every house, document which houses were destroyed, how many persons died in the storm itself as well.
Mr. Neely,
Yeah.
I don't think too many of our people are cognizant of the role the Sahara plays
Yes.
in hurricanes.
Yes.
As an agriculturalist, right,
Yeah.
there's a school of thought that the pothole system
Yeah.
is being replenished or has been replenished by Sahara dust.
Yes.
Is that
Yes, in fact, that's one of the reasons why I didn't have any hurricanes last year. I spoke to the Rotary Club yesterday on that, and the reason why we didn't have an active hurricane season. And the Sahara dust was one of the main reasons. What happened in the Sahara, you have the dust from the deserts coming off the African coast into the Atlantic, and that goes all the way through to the Caribbean. And I went to school in Barbados, and it was, you can't pick it up here hardly, but in Barbados and those other southern Caribbean states, you can see the dust very clearly. You can see the impact. One day it will be clear, next day it will be extremely hazy, and you can't see anything. And Sahara dust is one of the reasons. And with the Sahara dust, it's dry, stable air. So if a hurricane runs into Sahara dust, it absorbs all the moisture from the hurricane. That's one of the reasons why the hurricanes died out last year.
so the Sahara dust is an advantage?
No, it's a disadvantage for hurricanes.
I mean, it's an advantage for us, of course.
Yes.
Because it breaks up, so to speak, the hurricane.
Yes, it does. And it basically, because in the Sahara you have dry, stable air. Hurricanes need moist, tropical air to grow and develop. And a lot of the storms this last year ran into those pools of Sahara dust over the Atlantic, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't have hurricanes.
That's why they were broken up.
Yeah, that's why they were broken up, and that's one of the things that they didn't. It's difficult to forecast Sahara dust, so that's one of the reasons why a lot of the top meteorologists went wrong. For example, they went for Colorado State University went for 19 named storms, and 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. This year we only had 2 hurricanes. First time since 1982 that has happened.
So we need a lot more of that Sahara dust.
No, we don't need that. I'm a meteorologist. That's like a news reporter and a story. I love hurricanes.
You do?
Yes, I do. That's why I read about them.
I see. Okay. Well, we don't like hurricanes
Oh,
here
yeah.
because
Okay.
it creates a lot of problems for us.
Yes.
But, Mr. Neely, the 1929 hurricane, that was before they named hurricanes,
Yes.
right?
They never started naming them until from 1950 onwards.
1950.
And back then they named them after either the city they devastated or the country they devastated. In this case, the Great Bahamas Hurricane was called Great Bahamas Hurricane in the record books, or the Great Andros Island Hurricane because it devastated the island of Andros.
Okay. So the 1929 hurricane, which was the Great Bahamas Hurricane,
Yes.
mostly impacted New Providence,
New Providence and Andros, yes. It was a Category 4 hurricane. It remained stationary or quasi-stationary over New Providence and Andros for 3 consecutive days. So could you imagine?
3
yes,
days?
Yes, non-stop, 140 mile per hour winds. So for 3 days we had that, and so 95% of all the churches in Nassau were destroyed. All of the churches in Andros were destroyed, or just about all the houses on Andros were destroyed. And in terms of damage, the population of New Providence was 13,000. 5,000 of that were rendered homeless because of this storm.
5,000
Yes.
people out of 13,000 in 1929.
Yes.
You know, I was reading your book, and the roof of Ebenezer Chapel was blown off.
Yes.
The roof of Trinity Church was blown off. Several boats were flung or floated on the eastern side of Bay Street. The roof of St. Anne's Church blown off. The building completely destroyed. 2 of the jumper churches, Brother Enos's church and Brother Stanley's in Grantstown, Enos was W.V. Enos.
Yes.
Godfrey's.
Yes. Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Godfrey's
My grandfather.
grandfather.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Godfrey's grandfather, W.V. Enos. They call him Papa.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Two in Freetown district were leveled to the ground. The walls of Wesleyan meeting place were destroyed, and the building itself was leaning, and the inside affected by flood waters. Salem Baptist Church on Parliament Street, where the court was,
Yes.
had its frontage badly torn, and there was a gaping hole on the top of the building. And for a while after the storm, the services were conducted in the ruins of the church under a torn roof. The walls and the roof of Zion Baptist Church on Eastern Shirley Street fell in, and the structure was more or less totally demolished. And after the storm, the congregation of Zion Baptist Church, Eastern Shirley Street, had to worship for months at the Aurora Hall on Charlotte Street. A portion of the roof of St. Matthew's Church was blown off, the walls cracked, and inside the church was flooded in the storm. The roof was blown off at St. Mary's Church on Virginia Street. The Seventh-day Adventist Church on East Shirley Street roof and building were destroyed. 300 people were sheltered at Our Lady's Chapel, the Roman Catholic Church in Grantstown, throughout the storm.
It was a bad storm, Mr. Jones. All the churches were destroyed.
This 29 hurricane came to wipe out the churches.
It wiped out the homes too, but yes, it wiped out all the churches. And in fact, one of the things that I spoke to a lot of the persons there, for example, in the 1926 hurricane, Trinity Church was destroyed. 1927 it was destroyed again. 1929 it was destroyed. 1928 it was destroyed. 1932 it was destroyed. So basically, people were wondering, they were making wisecracks about whether God actually hearing their prayers, because every time they pray for no hurricanes, they get hurricanes and they destroy the roofs of the houses of the churches.
Yeah. Let's take a break here. This is the platform. Godfrey Enos will have a question for you when we return.